Thank you for joining us today as we journey through the Bible one day at a time. Our reading for today was in Matthew chapter 27 and 28. And as you finish this gospel, you probably notice that the gospel of Matthew ends with high drama. Chapter 26, Gethsemane. Chapter 27, the crucifixion. Chapter 28, the resurrection. You know, in 6,000 years of human history, I think those are the most three significant days that have ever been. We talk about the resurrection in chapter 28. You know, the Bible offers many witnesses of the resurrection of Jesus who were disciples. Maybe they didn't believe it at first, but once they saw the risen Christ, they had no doubts. They went to their grave, sure that Jesus was risen from the dead. But you know, some of the most convincing witnesses were actually the enemies of Jesus. And that's what we see here. You notice at the end of chapter 27, verse 62, it says the next day, the day that followed the day of preparation, the chief priests and Pharisees came together unto Pilate, saying, Sir, we remember that that deceiver said while he was yet alive, After 3 days I will rise again. Command therefore that the sepulchre be made sure until the third day, lest his disciples come by night and steal him away and say to the people, He is risen from the dead. So the last error shall be worse than the first. Pilate said unto them, You have a watch, go your way, make it as sure as you can. And so they went. They made the sepulchre sure, sealing the stone, and setting a watch. Now, do you understand their intention? They wanted no hint of a resurrected Jesus. And so that's why they went to Pilate and asked him to make it sure. They thought if the body was stolen, they'd have real problems. Why? Because Jesus predicted he would rise from the dead, and they knew it. And as long as Jesus' body was still in that tomb, it would crush any potential power this movement had. There would be no church. There would be no Christianity. They could just take people to the tomb and say, Look at the body. This is Jesus. He's dead. And if he's still in that tomb, that proves him to be a liar because he said he would rise again. But you notice in chapter 28, verse 1, it says, In the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week, came Mary Magdalene and the other Mary to see the sepulchre. And behold, there was a great earthquake, for the angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone from the door and sat on it. His countenance was like lightning, and his raiment white as snow. And for fear of him, the keepers did shake and became as dead men. Well, their job was to keep this crime from happening, to keep any disciples from coming to steal the body of Jesus. Easy duty for a soldier. I'm sure they looked at it that way. But it's almost comical to see how easily God dispensed with this uh, security guard of Roman soldiers. There's a violent earthquake. The angel comes, rolls back the stone, sits on it. And these Roman guards were so afraid of one angel that they shook and became like dead men. Isn't it ironic how the living guards end up becoming like the dead and Jesus walks out very much alive? They were told to tell a lie by the priest. Um, Disciples came and stole the body of Jesus away. How did they do that? Well, they were sleeping. If you're sleeping, how do you know it was the disciples? We don't ask those questions, but the truth is, they were sleeping while they were on duty. Soldiers don't do that, especially Roman soldiers. I remember when I was in basic training, one of the first things they taught us, we had guard duty overnight there during basic training. We had a 2 hour shift usually. We'd do our 2 hours, somebody would come and relieve us. But I went through basic training in Fort Knox, Kentucky. And I think we were probably fairly safe there. It's unlikely that anybody would break into Fort Knox and go looking for a basic training. We were brand new at it 2 weeks before this. We were civilians. We didn't know anything about the Army, but they wanted us to understand one thing, and that is the soldiers do guard duty. No matter where you are, whether you're on base, whether you're in a combat zone, somebody's on guard duty. And that was especially true of Roman soldiers. And the lie that they were told to tell was even more evidence of the truth of the resurrection. I always find it interesting, don't you, to note how God is able to turn situations around in the Bible. Joseph was turned from a slave to the second ruler in the land of Egypt. The sure death of Daniel was turned around into a wonderful witness to the power of God. Paul was changed from a persecutor to a preacher. And the same thing happened in our text. This security guard was sent there with all the power of Rome, an initiative to keep a crime from happening, but they left with no power, great fear, and ended up committing a crime of their own. And yet God used this guard as a witness to the priests and the Pharisees. And he also used their lies as a further witness to the truth. You know, my friend, if you're thinking today that your life is beyond hope, I want you to know that the risen Lord has the ability to turn your life around. The man who was the head usher at a church I pastored in eastern Washington told me once that when he was in high school, he would have been voted least likely to attend church ever. He said the only reason he would go near a church was to steal gas from their buses for his motorcycle. And yet God saved him, completely changed his life. And you know what, my friend, my Lord can do the same thing for you as well. Stay in the Word. Keep reading. Our reading for tomorrow is in Mark chapter 1 to chapter 3. Be reading there, and I'll see you again soon. Have a great day, everybody.